right there, ghouls and goblins, our beloved fangs and infernos. It is time for Vampire and Devil to bring a new conversation piece to all of us. We have things to talk about. We've got movies to discuss. We've got books to read or write or both, and all kinds of creeptastic fun things to talk about as we bring our good friend on, Screamin' Mad Dee Calhoun. How are you, my friend? Welcome to the Vampire and Devil podcast. We're happy to have you.
No, thank you very much. I am tired of living, but afraid to try anything else. So here I am.
Well, you're somewhat living, sometimes exploring, but you're here right now. We got you.
Yes, I'm right where I want to be.
Right on, man. No, again, thank you so much, man. We appreciate it. And the last time that we got to hang was, at one of the more recent cons, involved like the Fright Reads. There was also Horror on Main. So why don't we jump right in there? Because that was kind of one of our more recent interactions. You've got your books as like a horror author, and how did you get involved in putting your horrific thoughts to paper?
It all started really by accident 10 years ago. I was working a job overnights, and one night was just bored. It was dead. There was nothing going on. I'm like, I got to find something to get into. So I found a Reddit group for 500 words or less horror stories. And I started reading, and I thought, you know what, I can do this. This is pretty good. So I started writing little stories and posting them, and they were well received. People dug it. So I just kept churning them out and decided if I get enough of these to form a book with, I'm going to self-publish. Why not? Be the first kid on my block to do it. And it happened. I published it. It was a real unique little item at my merch table at live shows, because there I am with music and whatnot. And wow, you wrote a book? And I figured it was one and done. And then a couple years later, I had written a song that told a story, and thought to myself, there's more to this story. I want to know what else happens. And decided, let's write it. And that became a novella. And at that point, it kept coming. After that was another short story collection, then my first novel, then a novelette collection, and I've just finished my second novel, which will be out in April.
Oh, that's awesome, man. When you look at a festival like you did for Fright Reads that caters more towards authors specifically, as opposed to another event like Horror on the Main, which is a little bit more traditional, like a horror con, what do you find to be some of the differences, maybe some pros versus cons of doing things like that? I mean, obviously, being at a con that's specific to books and writing is going to be beneficial in its own right. But is there anything in particular that you've noticed in working something that's specific to what you're there for, as opposed to everybody being involved and different vendors of different kinds?
Well, something like Fright Reads, which is specifically a book con, it's a lot more streamlined. You know exactly what you're going there for and what you're trying to push. Something like Horror on Main being a little broader, it's kind of the same thing, at least with writing dark fiction, it fits into the horror motif. And my music fits into the horror motif just because the storytelling and the writing overlap so much. So much of my music has inspired stories and songs that are stories and back and forth. It's probably a little easier to go into something like Fright Reads that is specific to one certain type of thing, but the competition is really strong at an event like that, because everyone there is writing and publishing. So at Horror on Main, something like that, it's a little spread out a little bit. So people who are looking for books, they're not going to be inundated with books everywhere they look. So, it's a dog eat dog world. Definitely. It is. I've found it is a lot harder to get someone to read a book than it is to listen to a song. You can, put an MP3 player or YouTube in front of someone and say, listen to this song. And you can perform a song live and get it out that way. With a book, it's a lot different. It's a lot harder to get someone to invest that kind of time to check out your stuff.
For sure, man, absolutely. And one more thing for you real quick before I pass the fireball over to Devil there is one of the things that was also cool was when it was with Horror on Main was you got to host a panel in which you got to talk about like a bunch of different stuff and talk about like what you thought about like zombies in this form versus this form, as well as all kinds of just different categories that you covered like during your segment. How did it feel just kind of being up at the head of the class, kind of taking on a segment like that and just talking to the populace about it?
I didn't think anything was going to come of it. I was, at my table, manning that and thought, oh, it's time for me to do this panel. Let me go see if anyone's actually there. And I went down in the hall and there's people in there. And I see people sitting in there and I thought, is this the right place? And I stuck my head in it. I said, hey, what are you guys here for? And someone says, we're here to talk about zombies. I said, oh, cool. So, no, that was a lot of fun. Just having an open discussion like that. It went really quick. I worried, how are you going to fill up the allotted time? And it went really fast. It was very engaging and a lot of fun. I actually submitted an idea to Fright Reads for this September for something similar. The idea that I proposed, which I just submitted that yesterday, so it'll be a while down the road before it's confirmed or whatnot. But since my new book is a werewolf story, I said, let's have a discussion about the different types of werewolves in literature and in film, because you've got the classic werewolf, cursed by the full moon, 3 nights a month, they wolf out. But then you've also got the type like in The Howling that they can change at will. And, there is no silver bullet restriction or anything like that. And then you've got the type from sort of similar to that in the Underworld film. So just a discussion, not necessarily what's better, what's worse, but just, discussing the different types of werewolves that are out there. So I proposed that for this year. So we'll see what happens with it.
Oh, very cool, D. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with a band called Blitzkid, but I'm a huge fan of those guys. And they just had been releasing a series of singles over the last year of a new EP that was fully dedicated to werewolves. So they put out 5 separate songs that were all werewolf songs, and they're releasing the ability to order it on vinyl on his website on Saturday.
Nice.
And there's like 3 different versions of the vinyl. They're doing like a full moon, which is like a yellow vinyl, a half moon, which is literally half yellow, half black, and then like the new moon, which is like all black, and then it
that's cool
on it, which I thought was a really, really cool thing.
That's
but
great.
Also I did see that you recently saw the new Wolfman movie.
Yes.
Did you like it?
I did, and I think probably the biggest disservice Lee Wanell did to himself was calling it Wolfman. By giving it that title, everyone going into it has a preconceived idea of what it should be, and it isn't. It's a very different take on the werewolf story. This is again another type of werewolf that we could discuss, down the road sometime. But by calling it Wolfman, you automatically generate interest in it. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. I like the fact that it wasn't just a retread. If you are going to redo something or reimagine something, then reimagine it, do it different. I'm a huge fan of the Wolfman from 2010.
Yeah.
The Benicio del Toro. I love that. I love the design of it. I love the vibe, the period piece aspect to it. But I like this one for what it was. It's a very simplistic kind of story and just a completely different take on it. So I went in sort of expecting that it wasn't going to be, you know, Lon Chaney Jr. running around on the moors. It was going to be its own kind of thing. And so I was able to go in with an open mind. It didn't blow me away, but I did enjoy it.
Nice, man. That's cool. Yeah, Devil and I did a showdown a while back of werewolves and stuff like that, and we felt confident going in about the movies that we picked until we actually watched the movies that we picked. One of which we knew was just a good, fun movie, and that was in Ginger Snaps. And then until it was that both of us had revisited the movie, is when both of us kind of realized, like, wow, holy shit, Cursed is not good in any way, shape, or form.
Well, you know what? I watched a werewolf film a few years ago, and I'm not a highbrow film snob. I think that any film of any quality can serve a purpose. And sometimes bad movies are perfect for the moment you watch them in.
Mm-hmm.
And I came home from work. It had been just a terrible day. My son was here with me. And I said, I just need to find a mindless, dumbass movie to watch. And I went searching. I want to say it was on Prime, and found this indie flick called Bubba the Redneck Werewolf. And I queued it up, and my son says, Dad, you're really not going to watch this, are you? I said, probably not, but I'm going to give it a try. And I loved it. It was the perfect film for the state of mind I was in that night. Now, if I'd watch it now, I might think, oh, I hope I never end up in that point again where something like this is appealing. But yeah, I think at any given moment, any film can fill a void that you need filled at that particular moment.
Well, I definitely agree with you on that. And Devil, I'm gonna pass it over to you, my friend. Is that we had a very similar conversation recently, and Devil and I are big trauma nerds. We're big Full Moon fans and stuff like that. So like, you're definitely right, D, what you say about like a movie, regardless of how good or bad it is, can be the perfect movie at any particular time. I just think, for a little bit of like clarity for any of the Fangs and Infernos that haven't seen that episode yet, is more that when in the way that we do the show and the way that we do like our showdowns and stuff like that, where we really kind of break things down and we do talk about like this look versus that look, a scene done this way, budgets and stuff like that. We pretty much, we dive in deep, or at least we try to when it comes to these, is really what kind of like made it so far the only flawless victory for one movie that we've ever had in our show. And I remember seeing Cursed in the theaters, liking it, and it still wasn't without its charm. I mean, I'm a huge Christina Ricci fan. She can do no wrong. So that was also one of the reasons why I think I jumped on Cursed so fast when we were doing werewolves. But just when you're breaking down this movie, with the way the graphics were done, CGI versus practical effects, as opposed to this movie where it's CGI versus practical effects, but they're much more practical, so there's a realism to it. Mm-hmm. That's when you start really realizing, like, damn, this movie just doesn't hold up, or in this particular comparison, just wasn't a thing. Isn't that right, my friend?
Yeah. So, as we're talking about werewolves and stuff like that, in the werewolf spirit, I want to know, it's a really hardcore question, and it's really heart-filling, and it kind of put me back a little bit. How has it been this many years you've been alive, D, and you didn't know Wolfman had nards?
Oh, no, that part of Monster Squad, just to fill everyone in, I had never seen Monster Squad. I've been aware of it since it was a new film. And of course, I'd seen the trailers and, definitely was familiar with that line. Kick him in the nards. Wolfman doesn't have nards, do it. Wolfman's got nards. Now, I was very familiar with that aspect of it. But yeah, that was just one of those movies that somehow I had never sat down and looked at. And it was sort of the case that I mentioned earlier. I just wanted something kind of fun just to kind of shut my brain off and check out. And I came upon that, and I said, you know what? I've never watched this. It's time to fix that. And it was perfect. It was the perfect movie the other night.
Yeah.
It was one of those movies that I knew I would love it when I finally watched it. Um,
It's just funny because I'm a huge Monster Squad fan. I've met like pretty much almost the whole entire cast, and I was like, like I know D in his horror movies and stuff like that. I'm like, how has he not seen the Monster Squad of all movies? Which is funny because we just as we were doing our alphabets of horror, we did Night of the no, I almost said Night of the Comet, Night of the Creeps, which is Fred Decker, who directed that movie, who directed Monster Squad, and you can just see like the kind of cool differences. But going into your questions, going into questions for you, I mean, with writing, with writing music and you writing books and stuff like that. I know you said it was, it's definitely a lot easier for you to plug a song versus plugging, books, because people just don't have the, the mental capacity right now, or the the being able to sit and read a book versus listening to like a 3-minute song or 5-minute
exactly.
song. But
Right.
you being like a published published director, I mean a published author, and and you've done music, and you've done a label and stuff like that. Do you find it easier to get your name out as an author or get your name out as a band?
Well, I'm definitely more known as a musician because I've been doing that a lot longer. Um, but now that I've started doing the book shows and the horror on mains and the fright reads and stuff, I am starting to cultivate a little group of people who know me as a writer, who are like, oh wow, you do music too, um, which is kind of fun, to sort of have that duality now. Within music, writing's always been perceived as kind of a novelty. Oh, cool, you write books too. And now it's sort of the flip side of that. People who are like, oh well, you do music too. Like, oh, isn't that cute? That kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
so it's again having that duality. Because I don't think if you're doing something creative and you're really serious about it, you don't want it to be kind of a footnote or a side note. Um, I don't bill myself as, hey, I'm a musician. I also dabble in writing. Um, on my business cards, it says singer, songwriter, author. Um, so it's all right up there. When I introduce myself at live shows, I'm a singer, songwriter, and author from Frederick, Maryland. I let people know right off the top, this is who I am. It's not one or the other. I'm definitely known more for music, but I I get as much joy and am as excited about the writing as I am about the music.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then then you can kind of do both chops. You can be at a book convention, and they're having a like singing kind of like a competition. You can be like, yeah, I'll blow all these guys out of the way and stuff like that, and they'll be like, wait, this guy can freaking hit. Especially if like you said, people you don't know you in the music industry, and they're meeting you in these book conventions and see, oh yeah, I've read this book or I've seen that book or whatever like that, and meet you and stuff like that, and then go and see you like play live, and they're like, holy shit, like this dude isn't like a joke, man. I mean, like I said, I mean, I've always said that, as far as like, I'm always a big huge supporter of local music. I'm
Mhm.
not necessarily a supporter of most local bands, because most local bands suck, although I like local musicians, but I don't, it's like, okay, yeah, they're a dime a dozen and stuff like that. But I've told you this a million times, and I was like, I will put your vocals against anybody in the industry right now, and
Thank
you'll
you.
blow them away, man. Like it's insanely how, like, like I said, even with the with the books, read the books and stuff like that, how your mind works for writing. But the just your lyrics and stuff like that, and the songs you do is insane too. It's crazy that, like, that it's like, hey man, why not be good at one thing? I can just be good at all things. You know what I mean? Might as well just take the world by storm. And I think it's kind of cool that, like, people are going to be able to see, that people who are fans of you in the music scene will be like, oh, cool, man, you write, and start reading some of your words and be like, oh,
Right.
wow, this guy's not like just some mindless, stupid musicians like most people think, but especially when it comes to metal, and especially the kind of metal that you guys
Yes.
do. You're very, that, sludge doom metal, and most people who aren't into that music usually think of like these guys are a bunch of blubbering idiots or something like that, where they don't
Monosyllabic
realize.
stoners kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like that, and then, like I said, then they say, oh wait, wow, he can actually articulate really well, and he's got a bigger vocabulary than he, she, they, little one, little two, little three, little words and stuff like that. And then like for the other way around too, though, you get these people who come and see your books and stuff like that, and then you play one of your music videos in the background. And they're like, holy shit, man! Like, this dude can belt, man. Like, those vocal high ranges are insane.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
But yeah, so I mean, do you when you're writing, these books, or writing the lyrics for some of your lyrics and stuff like that, have you ever just go, sometimes go, okay, maybe, especially with some of, like, because everybody who knows you knows that you're a man who speaks his own mind. You know what I mean? You basically just go like, this is how it is. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Do you ever kind of push back a little bit of that when you're writing books, and or writing versus writing lyrics, where you're like, okay, maybe in my songs I can go a little bit more full fuck you mode, versus in these books you got to kind of push back that, like, I want to, push boundaries, or are you still like pushing the boundaries?
Well, I think with storytelling, anything that you do within it should benefit the story. If going full on fuck you mode benefits the story, then absolutely. Um, One Horse Town, my first novel, had a lot of sexual content in it, and it felt weird writing sexual content. I felt much more comfortable writing the bar fight scene, um, because I didn't want the sexual content to come off as gratuitous. It was an integral part of the story, and needed to be there. So I wanted emphasis on it, but I didn't want to overemphasize on it, like I was just like, you know. Um, so there's a fine line with it. And it all boils down to what works for the story. Um, so if going fuck you mode is what's needed, I'll go there. If it's not needed, I'll pull back a little bit, just for the sake of good taste within storytelling.
Yeah, yeah. And then, with what I always ask a lot of times, especially with, musicians who, write music, and also, want to write write books and stuff like that, and you do kind of both do. Have you ever thought about maybe delving into like screenwriting, or writing movies, or anything like that kind of stuff too? Especially with you being such a horror fanatic, it kind of would make sense, like, okay, I would kind of maybe dabble into that a little bit.
Jesus Devil Deed, my second book, the one I mentioned earlier that began as a song, and I wanted the rest of the story fleshed out. Yeah, that's it. I
Yep,
um
the devil loves it.
I have a screenplay for that. I've written a screenplay for that. Um, it's weird writing screenplays because it's a completely different format. You've got to
Yep.
rethink the entire structure and the entire presentation of it. It is something that one of those trying to go to sleep at night things that you think about to mellow you out. That's one of the things that'll dance in and out of my head. The video for Old Scratch Comes to Appalachia was the first foray into seeing one of my stories come to life, because that was animated, and that was very cool to see that. to see one of my stories come to life that way. So it is definitely something I would be interested in doing at some point, finding a filmmaker and say, hey, adapt this, and go from there.
Yeah, yeah. And then, like I said, with being in music and stuff like that, and being in the movies and or into writing the books and stuff like that, they always talk about collaborations and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go the sky is the limit for you here. If you could collaborate with anybody musically, who would it be? And if you could collaborate with anybody as far as author wise, who would it want to be?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm a huge King fan, where writing is concerned. And King is a big rock and roller himself.
Yeah.
I think it would be, that would definitely be a dream come true. Brian Keene would be another one because he's, fairly local. And I've everything of his that I've read, I've loved. So he would be fun to collaborate with. As far as music, I'm kind of collaborating, with who I want to collaborate with, my bandmates in Spiral Grave. It would be fun to, to be at a Priest show or something and get pulled up on stage to duet with Victim of Changes or something like that. But so I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of answers to that question.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see, like just from knowing you and just like even like just musically why you can definitely tell that like Rob Halford is definitely a huge inspiration, especially with, the high range vocals and stuff like that. It'd be pretty cool. And like, as far as writing, like who wouldn't want to collaborate with King or even his son, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
with him just because, he's a little bit more of like the newer time and stuff like that. So he'd be cool to collaborate with too. But yeah, that'd be cool to it'd be cool. You don't see that kind of collaboration in the book in the author
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you
And
do with the music.
I mean, there are instances of it, and King has done it. He did the Talisman with Peter Straub, and he did some writing with Richard Chismar. But yeah, it's got to be weird to. It's one thing to collaborate on a song, where like collaborating with Tony Iommi and he writes the riffs and you write the lyrics. But
Yeah.
when you're writing a story, you're kind of sharing the same mind, and that would be very strange. It would be a cool experience, though. There'd be a lot to learn from it, a lot to be learned from it. So I would welcome it, but it would definitely be something new and exciting.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Kick it there, Vampire.
Oh yeah, for sure. So D, we're a little early in 2025, so I actually want to take us back a little bit to 2024. What were some of your favorite movies that came out last year?
God, what even came out last year?
I mean, there were movies like Late Night with the Devil, Smile 2, Nosferatu, obviously Terrifier.
Right. And this is gonna piggyback right on the Monster Squad discussion. I have yet to see any of the Terrifier films.
What?
Yeah, so
Oh,
that's
you already had the devil on you. Now you've got vampire on your ass.
right. So that's something I'm gonna have to remedy. I loved Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah.
I loved everything about it, the aesthetic of it, I mean, it just reminded me of being a kid staying up with my dad and watching Johnny Carson late at night.
Yeah.
I mean, it nailed that. Some people hemmed and hawed about the ending a little bit. But the ending didn't let me down. The rest of it was so good that if the ending was a little weak, I can forgive it, just because I loved the setup, the vibe. Just love that film.
Yeah, we talked about that very briefly on our best of 2024 because the Fangs had all voted for the movies that they wanted us to talk about. Like they chose our 5 topics, and Late Night didn't make the cut, but Devil and I are playing around with the idea of maybe doing a special just for that movie because we really loved that movie, and there was a part of us that were like, that felt a little like, denied that we didn't actually get to talk about it in our end of 2024, because that one was a really cool movie. But I really liked Smile 2. I thought that movie was super duper cool. There were actually two vampire movies voted on to best in 2024 in the new Salem's Lot and Abigail, and I thought those were very cool as well.
I enjoy those a lot. Salem's Lot, I will concede the argument that it did feel a little rushed.
Yeah,
because we're all used to the Tobe Hooper version from 1979, that of course was a 2-part TV movie, so that you had a lot more room to explore the narrative, and of course the book is pretty massive.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I looked forward to it, and when I was finished I didn't feel like I'd been ripped off. Abigail was a lot of fun. And I also really liked In a Violent Nature.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of my ones that I wanted for the 2024. I thought it was a cool like way of like sort of behind the scenes of like if you were watching Jason from Jason's perspective.
Right. And, again, I'll concede the argument that it was kind of slow. It was kind of a slow burn. But that sort of thing never bothered me, especially when you kind of know going in what to expect. If I had gone into that film expecting something as chaotic as The Evil Dead, then yeah, I might have been disappointed. But I kind of knew the nature of the beast going in, and I thought it did well. And then that friggin' the Fly song over the end credits, that was an earworm for months after I watched that film.
Yeah.
Hearing that up north in Ontario, hearing that song over in my head.
Yeah, like I loved the Salem's Lot movie. I really did. I was kind of the same way. Like, I'm very familiar with the OG 2-episode really long movie. I've got 2 copies of the really, really long movie, as well as the Rob Lowe version. But I've always discussed this on the episode, and it's also what I've told people as well, is I'm like, I was really happy with the way that Max did that movie. I thought they actually did a very good job. I didn't felt, because you have to go, if you're familiar with Toby's version, like, you kind of have to dedicate your evening or your afternoon to that one. Like, you just kind of have to be committed to 3 hours of your life watching this movie. And I still think it's great. I think it goes, it is going to be a slow burn, but it's a 3-hour movie. But it's necessary where it needs to be on things. But I really liked the way the new Salem's Lot came across. Like, it was a 2-hour movie. To me, it actually didn't feel like a 2-hour movie. I thought it cruised very, very well. I liked the look of, Barlow. I thought it was cool. I thought they didn't stray too far off from it. Obviously, because it's still relatively fresh, because it's been less than a month. But obviously, there's a lot of back and forth currently on the thoughts and looks of Robert's vision of Nosferatu and stuff like that. So, but I
the only thing in Nosferatu that bugged me was the mustache.
You sound like Mrs. Van. That's what she said.
Yeah, like we were talking about the mustache, and like everybody's like defending it. And like when it comes to the mustache, it's like we get it, we understand it, we understand why the mustache was in play. It's going to that very Vlad the Impaler, that time period.
Right.
With
when
all
I
the other,
found that out,
all the other gypsies, and they were wearing mustaches. It just looks so weird on Skarsgård and an Orlok that you're so used to not seeing any facial hair on any Orlok. And like we've said before, he's just one of those like figments that you see that you're not supposed to really mess with the image of how he looks.
Right. And once I found out about the Vlad the Impaler angle to it, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. And you know.
Yeah, I still didn't like it, but I mean, I understood it, but I was like, yeah, I would have nixed that.
Right.
And that was my whole thing too about it. It's like I love, you know, I applaud the image. I applaud the you know, going there. I really did. But you know, it was like Devil and I were discussing, and like I've talked with, you know, plenty of people about, is I was like, if you look at just 100 years of vampires, just keep it like very simple when it comes to cinema, and you're just looking at the basic concepts of vampires, you know, there's always different ways to interpret the look of vampires. You've got like the English, you know, pinky out, very prim, proper, you know,
The
Bram
Lestats
Stoker,
of the world.
yeah, Bram Stoker, Lestat type, Anne Rice type of vampires. You've got the more punky, kind of traditional vampires with attitudes, where you get with like movies like Lost Boys and Near Dark, and there's a more recent movie called The After Dark that I really love. This kind of Romeo and Juliet type thing that they did in that movie. And then you've also got just the vicious image, the vicious
30 Days of Night.
something like, exactly, of 30 Days of Night, which is just out to just rip out your throat and drink everything.
Yes.
The one vampire that, again, this is nothing more than the fact that it was established 100 years ago, and up until Christmas, it had never been messed with, and that was Nosferatu. Was always a very concrete, basically set in stone visual look. You know,
Right.
bald, spiky ears, the rat fangs, long fingers, so on and so forth. I love Skarsgård's hands in the movie. I thought that was great. I didn't hate the ears. I didn't love them, but they worked for me. The fangs were okay, but again, I would prefer that bald look. And not only the mustaches, it's a clever Easter egg when you learn why it's there, but it's not proper for the character. Nor
Right.
is the little like European German hair swoosh. Like, you know, it's not proper for something that has been established as of 100 years ago, that this is what Nosferatu looks like, where everything else is kind of up for interpretation. And I'm a big fan of interpretation, and I love Robert Eggers' work. I just heard that he's going to be taking on the sequel to Labyrinth, and I'm very curious about that.
I saw that earlier tonight.
Yep, and I believe, actually, of our previous topic, I believe actually Wolfman is actually his next project. There's something Wolfman related that I think is going to be his other next project. I mean, I'm definitely what you would call a Robert Eggers fan. I love the fact that he's got this great relationship with Willem Dafoe. So, I mean, I'm in it to win it when it comes to his movies. I'll go see them all. But
The Witch.
I still really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a solid 8. Mrs. Vamp thought it was a 6. But it was cool. It's just, I appreciate it, but I need my Nosferatu very classic.
Right. The Witch is climbing its way toward being my favorite film ever.
Yeah, that was my pick on our versus showdown with the occult. We did the witch versus Lords of Salem, and I was a huge witch fan. I didn't like it nearly as much when I first watched it. I mean, I liked it, but then watching it more and more, I've appreciated it way more than I did before. I think it's, like you were saying, I think it's almost like a nearly perfect movie.
Right. And then you find out the goat that played Black Phillip was so disagreeable that they retired him from ever being in films again and just put him to pasture. Like, how metal is that?
My only real issue with The Witch is I really, and again, maybe it wasn't maybe it was new for them, maybe it was just something they didn't have a whole lot of experience with, but I hated the cast's attempt at that, you know, old school colonial New England accent. It really bugged me. I didn't think that I didn't love listening to him talk, but I loved the design of the movie, the concept of the movie, the screenplay of the movie. I thought was bulletproof, but I just really didn't love their vocal work when it came to the accents of that colonial Salem, time, which I mean, I get, it's not, I'm sure it worked for some, it just didn't work for me. And that even also was very similar to Nosferatu. I loved the casting. I personally did not love Lily Rose Depp. It's nothing personal to her. I've seen her in multiple movies. I think she's great. I personally don't think she's seasoned enough for that role. I don't think she was bad. I think she did just fine. I thought it came across well. I would have personally loved to have seen somebody like Emma Stone cast, where I've loved watching her progression, where she's started off as this kooky kind of comedy actress with like The Rocker and Easy A and Superbad. Now she's won 2 Oscars in like 3 years, like literally for old school type characters,
Right.
Marie Antoinette and Pretty Little Things and stuff. So for that particular casting, I would have preferred somebody more experienced like an Emma Stone. Again, nothing against Lily. I think she did just fine, and I'm excited to see where she goes. It just didn't fully work for me.
Wasn't the gal from The Witch offered that role in Nosferatu?
She might have been. I'm not sure.
Somebody was offered it and had to turn it down to scheduling, and I want to say it was her. I'll look into that later, but I think it was her.
Yeah. So, as we're talking about movies and we're talking about, going into the past with 2024 and stuff like that. So, we've talked about it a little bit between me and him, but I didn't know if you've seen it or what your take of it was. And, we had our opinions. I wanted to hear an outsider's maybe opinion of it. Did you see the new Crow movie? And if you did, what did you think about
No.
it? That's fair enough.
Watch it. I always will check out films that are very polarizing. Just to get my own vibe on it. But that was one of those films that did not need to be remade. And I'm not one of these sticklers of, quit remaking films, If you don't like the idea, don't go see it. But The Crow from '94 is perfect. Other than the tragedy that came with it.
Yeah.
So no, I'm making a short answer very long. So no, I did not see it.
It's all good, and I'm gonna make Devil suffer again for just a moment, but I promise to keep it relatively brief. We dedicated literally an entire episode to talking about that movie, because I'm not gonna lie, we kind of wanted to strike while the iron was hot, and we kind of wanted to get our breakdown and review kind of out into the ether quickly. My thing was very, very simple. Like, I love The Crow all the way through. Just like everybody else, I'm a huge fan of the original. I actually also very much enjoy the second one, The Stairway to City of Angels. I thought for what it was worth and the design of it, I thought they did a very good job. I really did. When it came to Salvation, the third one, look, it wasn't without its charm. You could see it kind of moving in different directions with stuff, but it wasn't without its charm. I liked it. Okay, it's fine. Wicked Prayer hurt my heart, and I'm a big Edward Furlong fan. I met him at Monster Mania, and he signed my Crow poster. That movie made me really sad as far as a Crow movie. Here's the speediest version when it came to the Crow movie. First and foremost, I am a Bill Skarsgård fan. I make no qualms about that. I love him as a character actor. Big nerd. Here's the thing. I didn't personally have a problem with them making a new Crow movie, like a franchise movie. That movie had before you break down the other issues, it had one very specific just kiss of death. And that was, they named the characters Eric and Shelley. That was the stupidest thing they could have done. Yep. I liked Bill's look. I thought his interpretation of the makeup and what he used to put it on was cool. I liked it. I like the fact that the makeup is what it is originally, of course, It is what it is in the second movie to match. I dig. The third movie, I didn't hate. I didn't hate the slightly new design. And the fourth movie, it just, they tried. They were dead where they stood simply on the names of those characters. The other main part is the whole basis of the Crow franchise is based around that pure love of some facet, whatever that facet may be. First movie, obviously, of a couple. Second movie, for example, a father and son. It's about pure, just untouched love. And the bottom line is, when it came to The Crow, sorry, all you Fangs and Infernos that are watching this, you have had more than enough time to read your reviews or go watch the movie. So spoiler alert, fuck y'all. Is the fact that it was more about, it wasn't fully about pure love. They might have seriously loved each other, but the bottom line is it was about Shelley's shitty past catching up to them. That's not correct. That's not how it's done. It's right. Wrong place, wrong time, being taken off the earth for improper reasons. And that was a problem. And second of all, the main way I've always described the movie is, frankly, it's not a Crow movie. It really isn't. The way that I always said to do is, if you take like the physical book, speaking to an author, of like Kill Bill or like John Wick, like the physical book you would read, and then you take the same physical book you would read of like Queen of the Damned and take the dust jacket off and put it over Kill Bill, that's what you had. They did a bloody revenge movie wrapped in a gothic love story. Right. It was just, if they had simply committed to a new interpretation of the franchise, I'm sure the peanut gallery still would have been speaking. But that movie it was just so toast. The original photos annoyed me. I didn't hate the mullet. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. But they didn't use it in the movie, which I thought was a smart move. I didn't love the tattoos, but it made sense. It's explained in the movie, and it does make sense. But that's really the bottom line of it. It's not a Crow movie, just no matter how much they want it to be. Second of all, it's a misinterpretation of how love is supposed to be shown in that movie. And the fact of the matter is, the ultimate just death blow was using those two sacred names was so stupid.
Right. I wonder how often that happens with films, though. I always think when the fourth Die Hard film came out, years after Die Hard with a Vengeance, and I always wonder if somebody pitched this film and a studio exec looked at the story and said, let's see if we can get Bruce on board as John McClane and we'll just call it a Die Hard film. Just for that familiarity, for that name recognition. I guarantee you that stuff goes on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at not the latest Indiana Jones, but that one that was before with Shia LaBeouf.
Oh, the Crystal Skull one.
That was a prime example of let's just try to milk a dead cow and just make let's just make an Indiana Jones movie that really has nothing to do with Harrison Ford or old ass Indiana Jones running around, old ass Harrison Ford trying to do stuff. It's like
just name recognition.
Yeah. Yep. But like I said, speaking of that in movies and stuff like that with music, I was kind of wondering too if something you've been interested in maybe doing, or have you tried to go into that realm of like soundtracks for movies? Have you ever tried to put in your send in your music for a movie, or like had if you have any friends of yours who have done movies that you'd want to put your music into soundtracks and stuff like that? Have you been interested in possibly doing any of that kind of stuff too?
Definitely, and that's something that I love to explore doing horror conventions, is find these indie filmmakers. There's actually a song on my next album that was written, the guy who animated the Old Scratch Comes to Appalachia video hit me up, and he had a project in mind, actually an animated zombie film, and he asked if I'd like to contribute a song, and within like 2 days I had written and recorded a song for him, and he loved it. and then the project fell through. So I've been sort of holding on to that song. And when I was putting the track list together for my next album, I kept coming back to that song, and I'm like, the theme of this song fits so well within the other songs of this album that I ended up using it. But it was originally written for a film soundtrack for a film that didn't end up happening.
Well,
So
that
yeah,
doesn't
definitely be into that.
Well, that
Yeah, 'cause
doesn't
I was
necessarily
thinking,
mean that it can't be submitted down the line if the right thing.
Right.
yeah, because that's what I was thinking too. With now with you starting to getting into this, the world of cons and stuff like that. I mean, that's almost like a perfect thing. Because I mean, I'm pretty sure you go and you talk to these indie directors and be like, hey, I'm a musician. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, I mean, so is everybody else. But you can at least show that like, hey, I'm actually like, I've kind of like, not what would you want to call it, kind of like like a real musician, I guess. You've been on a label and stuff like that. So, you're accomplished musician versus like, somebody who's just known by like people in their house and their garages and stuff like that. So you
Right,
can be
right.
like, hey, you could show them in these physical albums that you've had and be like, hey man, if you guys, either if you want one of these songs that I've already wrote in one of your songs, that'd be kind of cool. Or if you need me, I'll write a song. Because I was thinking about always doing that too. Because like as much music as I like to do, and I'm always watching these television shows with the music in the background. I'm like, dude, I can make that kind of stuff too. It'd be so cool just to get it. Because like shit for me. It wouldn't even be more of a monetary thing. It would be like if Damien, I mean, I know the Terrifier guys are huge now, but like even when they weren't huge, if they wanted to put one of my songs in there, shit, I'd pretty much just do it for free, just for or a little bit of money, just for the exposure
Well,
of having my song in something like
it
that.
looks great in the press kit,
Yeah,
that's there's always the debate about doing stuff for exposure, the pros and cons for it. But there's
Yeah.
definitely an advantage to doing things that look good on the resume. I mean, I have no delusions of grandeur. I'm not going to, be touring the world or getting on a tour bus for 6 weeks and heading out. I may do, go to Europe and do 2 weeks, that sort of thing here and there. But I know the capacity that I'm doing things and what to expect from it. Whenever somebody, tries to cut on me and say, man, don't quit your day job, I say, I can't quit my day job. I make too much money. So I know where my place is in the grand scheme of things. So, but I sort of agree with what you said. It would just be cool to do it,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said,
Yeah,
I
like
said
it's
about
like
my first book, I was the first kid on my block to do it. It would kind of be that approach to it.
yeah. That's how I always said. I was like, like I said, it's just be, granted, yeah. I'm not saying I need to have a song that's on an Academy Award winning, huge maker blockbuster movie and stuff like that. Even if it's an independent movie that 5 people see, it'd just be cool to like all of a sudden, see the credits and all of a sudden like, the song comes up and you're like, oh shit, that's my song,
Right.
It'd just be cool just to kind of have that, like I said, and especially with independent guys, because a lot of them, they have to kind of go to musicians that are like willing to do that versus, going and getting like Motley Crue or Kiss or something like
Yeah,
that because
licensing
they don't have the license, they don't have the money to license
licensing will
that shit.
kill you.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why only the first season of Malcolm in the Middle was ever released on DVD, because the studio couldn't afford the licensing for a DVD release because of the music.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because they had "They Might Be Giants" as the theme song of that show.
Yes.
But no, for sure, because also like what you and Devil were just talking about, is like, for example, you've got, Lee, Voice, who was the Clown Cafe girl, and the orderly in the Terrifier movie, the second one, which will make sense when you see it. But she kind of got the gig because she was like this, cosplayer. She also sings and stuff like that. But, so she got cast, in this role that, she needed to sing in and stuff like that, and it kind of worked out. But also now, fast forward, is that Terrifier recently paired up with Ice Nine Kills, and Ice Nine Kills just did a song, a work of art for Terrifier 3, and there's a female breakdown in that song, and it's Lee, the Clown Cafe girl from the second Terrifier movie, does the female
Nice.
vocals in this Ice Nine Kills song, which is just kind of cool the way it kind of works out that way, where, you know, I can imagine that Spencer's got, you know, contacts galore in his phone for female singers, but
Right.
it's very, very cool that, you know, they used, you know, somebody who was in the movie in a
It's like an
small
Easter egg.
role, a singing role
Yes.
in this song to really kind of bring everything like all the way circular and stuff, which I think is actually a super duper cool there. But Dee, let's bring it back a little bit to present time, man. What can you say and tell us at the moment about what you've got that you're looking at for 2025?
Well, I have a new book coming out April 4th. It'll be my sixth published book, my second novel. It's a werewolf story called Lumen that has been in my head since 1991.
Oh, wow.
I was in a band back then called Phantasm that wrote horror-themed songs and wrote a werewolf song, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to write this as a story? And the idea in the song kind of morphed into a modern day Little Red Riding Hood. And then it morphed from there. And around 96, I actually tried to write it. And I finished the first chapter and was just overwhelmed. And said, no, my brain's going to pop and run out of my ear. Because back then I'd write a short story, maybe 2 a year, just for the fun of it. And that story always hung around in my head. And then when I started writing in earnest, it kept bubbling to the front. And then I, did the short story collections and novella, and then finally cranked out an actual novel. And thought maybe I could give this story a go again. And when I decided to do it, I had the overall plot in my head, just ironclad, but the little details within weren't coming to me. And I thought, has this sat in my head so long that it's stagnant now? And I had written the prologue to it and read that at Horror on Main. I did a live reading, and that was one of the things that I read. And I thought, man, I said, this is going to be my prologue for my next book. Now maybe this won't be my next book. But I kept fooling around with it, and finally it started coming. And once it came, it was quick. And it was so cool because there were scenarios in that story, just little plot points, that have been in my head for 30 plus years, and finally getting to write them was just so cool. I'm emailing people or messaging people. So I'm finally writing the quote, this whatever scene. I'm finally writing that. It's basically a story. It's a werewolf story. The main character, Michael Lumen, in his past accidentally found a way to control part of the curse, to where he transforms physically but keeps his own human mind and will. It's triggered by the full moon. He's a traditional werewolf, full moon, silver bullets, all that, but he accidentally finds a way to control that part of it. And this is sort of a study on how he controls it, what he has to do to maintain that control. And then, remember the beginning of Spider-Man? This, like any great story, is about a girl. Mm-hmm. He meets a woman, and that, of course, complicates things because that's what meeting women does. But I had a lot of fun writing it. It was so cool to me after all these years to see this story finally come out on paper. So that's coming out in April. I have a new album recorded, which will be out at some point this year. Argonaut is releasing it. It'll be my 5th album with them. Have all the details and then some, but can't go into any detail yet other than it is coming. After Old Scratch Comes to Appalachia, which was a 2 CD set, album plus audio book, I decided this time just to dial it back and just a lean and mean, 9 songs, just no frills, no fuss, no muss, just a pissed off, swampy acoustic record.
Nice.
I would say this, yeah. So that album's gonna be a solo, like the D, the
Yeah.
Green D. Okay. Do you have any plans? Do you have any plans for any new material as far as Spiral Grave?
We are starting to write what will be our 3rd album. We hope to have that written over the course of the summer and then start recording in the fall. So, yep, that's moving forward as well. So,
yeah,
always something.
Yeah, it's just funny because like we were talking about with musicians and stuff like that, and you were talking about how you don't want to like toot your own horn, which is like the reason why I kind of always admired you and respected you a lot, because like it's like people don't realize, like, I mean, I'm not saying, we all know that you're not like this huge multi Judas Priest guys, but when it comes to the doom genre, the sludge, especially in Maryland, DC, PA, your name is up there on the top of bands as oldest band, especially with with the Spiral Grave stuff, the stuff you did with the Iron Man band, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm just gonna say this out here because I know, like I said, you don't like to toot your own horns a lot of times, but this guy is a lot better, a lot bigger than you would think, especially when it comes to the genre and in this area, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people will watch this and be like, dude, who doesn't know who freaking Dee Calhoun is? If you're from like, like I said, the general area of DC, Baltimore, Pennsylvania, Virginia area, and you're into doom, gloom, kind of, rock your ass in the dirt kind of music, people know who you are.
I'm a celebrity.
Yeah.
We'll toot it. We'll toot it for you, bro. Fucking beep beep.
I heard Kyra Schoen say that at a con. I'm a celebrity, and I said that is a good word, and I've used it ever since.
Yeah, and speaking of Kyra, I can kind of segue into that. We've done a bunch of director movies. So I'm gonna kind of give you a little bit of a speed quiz for stuff like that. So your top number 1 George Romero film.
I've got to go with Night, just because of the simplicity of it. And it was really guerrilla filmmaking. They're in there, just, it's a DIY film, and I respect the hell out of that, and the fact that they made this little film for shits and grins, and it became a landmark in horror cinema, and kickstarted a whole new genre that is all but beaten itself to death. But it all goes back to that, and that's to say nothing bad about Dawn of the Dead, and I love Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got to go with Night, just for the reasons I mentioned.
It's funny. I don't know if I've ever told you this one before we get into the next one. I always make everybody laugh, and people go, "Oh my God, I can't believe you said this to him." But the last time I got to talk to George before he passed away, I had him signing I don't remember which one I had signed. I told him like that, I'm in the very, very small minority of people who honestly believe that Tom Savini's remake is actually better than the original. And he agreed. He's like, I'm actually on that. I think Tom did a better job than I did.
I like Tom's remake a lot. The only thing about Tom's remake was the way they treated Harry Cooper.
Yeah.
And it was something that I always thought, and then I saw Kyra mention it in an interview where she said In the original, Harry was an asshole because he was afraid.
Yeah.
In the remake, he was just an asshole. And I had always felt that way. But no, I like the Night remake a lot, and I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was going to be a gore fest because it's Savini and he's
Yeah.
directing, but he reined it in. Again, back to the enhancing the storytelling and keeping it within what makes for a good story. And I like the subtle changes, with Barbara and the twist where, you know, Ben comes out of the basement and he's turned. Spoiler alert for a 35-year-old movie.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, like
exactly.
I made Night of the Living Dead like my number one of Romero's movies because I felt I needed to do that out of respect. But while it makes sense because that's kind of like my favorite style of movies anyway, but I also genuinely love the movie. Is I'm a huge Martin fan. Like overall, Martin is probably my favorite George Romero movie that he ever did. Again, it ties in with me personally, but I genuinely love the concept and the design of that movie. Um, and I have also heard that that's actually George's favorite movie that he ever directed, which is pretty cool if that is the truth. But yeah, I put Night of the Living Dead number one on my list of Romero movies because I just felt deep down out of respect it needed to be there. But for me personally, it's all Martin all the time.
Yeah, I think mine was Dawn of the Dead. I think
I
I
think
had Dawn
yeah,
as the first, just because it was just one of those, like, just balls to the wall crazy,
Well, the beginning of Dawn of the
Yeah,
Dead is some of
such
the
a
most
social.
terrifying filmmaking ever
Yeah,
because it just illustrates how the center does not hold and it all goes to shit really
yeah,
quickly. And it almost has a documentary feel to it.
yeah, exactly.
So,
And then we went into, so going back into the speed round again. So we did one with Wes Craven, number one favorite Wes Craven movie.
oh wow. People forget how genuinely scary the original Nightmare on Elm Street was.
Yeah,
A lot of people, when they think of Nightmare on Elm Street, they think of how it kind of got campy and goofy, and Robert Englund was so over the top with the character, and that kind of became what the character was known for. But the original was scary as hell.
yeah.
Um, um, I'm going to go with that. I mean, I know there were a lot of films that he did that I'm going to remember later and say, "Oh God, that's right, that's a Wes Craven."
Well, that's why it's a speed round.
Right,
yeah,
right.
So we're
But
not, we're
for
not
that
we're not giving
reason,
you time to think.
yep.
people don't, like I say, people don't remember how scary that was because you did not know what you were watching. Is
Well,
it
yeah, I mean
dream?
that's
Is it?
I mean that's always my favorite of all the nightmares, just because it's a more serious film.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the gore, it's got that. I mean, of course, everybody and and Vamp loves the Dream Warriors, and of course, but like I said, and like I said, I think that's my favorite one after the first one for sure. But like, yeah, for me, yeah, with that. So we did Wes Craven. We also did Dario Argento. Do you have a number one Dario Argento movie?
I'd have to go zombie.
Good
Or
one.
wait, or wait.
Yeah,
Well, that's
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 Lucille.
Steve.
yeah. He did Zombie 2.
Yeah, yeah. It was sort of an unofficial.
Yeah,
Um,
more like a collaboration.
Dario Argento did a great episode of Masters of Horror.
Sure
We
did.
put
We
it on
talked
our
about
ones. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. That was really just fucked up and weird and cool. Um,
Yeah, we
yeah.
did. Yeah,
that's
we
what.
talked. Yeah, we talked about that one, and then who
For
else did
us
we
it was
do?
opera.
Yeah.
Mm,
I'm a huge fan of that, and a huge Dario fan. I mean, a huge Asia Argento fan. That's probably my favorite thing that Dario Argento ever did was
That's
create
your favorite thing that he ever
create
made.
Asia
right.
Argento. He put her in the world, but yeah, for that with that, and then we did for last season we also did Clive Barker. So Clive Barker favorite movie.
My favorite Clive Barker work is something that was never filmed. History of the Devil. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
History of the Devil, I think, is a fucking masterpiece of storytelling.
Yeah.
I found it on Seeing Ear Theater, which was an audio series that was either produced by or affiliated with the Sci-Fi Channel. And it's like a 3-hour audio play similar to old time radio. And that, I think I got that in 98 was when I found that, 1998. And it still blows me away to this day. I would love to see a film adaptation of it. Just a big,
we're
grandiose.
Yeah.
As far as Barker's films, I've got a soft spot for Hellraiser because got to know Doug Bradley pretty well back in the day doing cons when I was in the Sabbath Tribute. He was a big fan of ours and got to spend some time with him. So for actual films, I got to go with Hellraiser, but just for his work overall, History of the Devil is so good.
Yeah. My favorite one that we were talking about that of things that he's wrote that never got put into a movie, which would have been, I don't know, there's probably a good reason why, because I mean, out of all of his books are all fucked up. It's hard to draw that line of how you're able to do it on film and get away with it. But my favorite book which makes sense why it never got put in a movie, because it's, at least in my opinion, probably one of his craziest books, was The Damnation Game.
Right.
I think that one would be, if he made that, it would probably be the most disturbing movie ever made.
Now, I like Rawhead Rex a lot. That's just one of those great B films where the kid actually gets murdered. You don't expect that.
Yeah, that one almost made my top 5. It was
on mine.
It was in Devils. It was
in mine.
Edged out at my number 5 by Midnight Meat Train. I just really love that movie. I like the concept of that movie. But if Clive Barker never gave us Hellraiser, I'm a huge nerd for Nightbreed.
Yeah, Nightbreed is.
Yes.
I think Nightbreed was my number 1. That was my favorite.
Yeah.
I just love the whole storyline of it and stuff like that. We were joking about like how long we were wanting the Cabal cut that we've been given all that information for, and then when we finally got it, we were like, fucking, no wonder they cut the shit. This, like, we really didn't need the Cabal cut now.
Right. Oh, real quick, I want to interject real quick and apologize, for the Argento fans when I said zombie when it's actually Fulci. I know that there were people screaming at that when I said it. I want to.
That wasn't wrong guy, son of a bitch.
I know everything. I just can't remember it all at once. So
no, for sure.
Apologies.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people don't realize that. Yeah, like he had part of doing Zombie 2, so people, which was the first, like even though he didn't direct it, he's got a kind of an iteration into that, because that was Asia Argento's first movie that she ever was an actress in, and he collaborated with Fulci a lot of times. So a lot of people have, I mean, I've had a lot of people go like, oh, I love Zombie, and I'm like, I mean, it's weird how many people like think that as being an Argento film sometimes, and then don't realize that it's not, and then you go, oh yeah, wait, that isn't an Argento. Like, even though it's not an Argento film,
right,
it still goes in your brain like Zombie, and you're like, oh wait, that's not an Argento film.
It's like that with Demons, because those were collaborative as well. Like, Demons had Aja and Demons had Dario, but they're not Dario movies.
Right.
Yeah.
The man that mastered the paint blood.
And then we did, and then for our first one of this season that we've gotten into, we did Tobe Hooper. As we were just talking about Tobe Hooper, what was your favorite Tobe Hooper film?
Oh, that's Texas Chainsaw. That
one?
Yeah.
That's me too. Like I'm a huge Texas Chainsaw fan, and there's no disrespect on that series what's in that movie by itself. Altogether, I'm a huge fan of it, but I've always been a Texas Chainsaw 2 guy. I feel Texas Chainsaw 2 is a more. I mean, we've done that with better sequels. I think it's a better film. I mean, number one is definitely more of your what it should be. It's a you know serial killer, mass murderer.
Mhm.
Falls to the wall. Where part two was I love the kookiness and the craziness and the characters and the interaction of it
Oh, Bill
a
Moseley.
lot more.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, I mean that's no disrespect to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because I mean I love that movie. I got to meet Marilyn before she passed away. I got to meet Gunner before he passed away. So that that definitely I've seen that in theaters. I've seen it when people have brought it back out when they remastered it. And some people got got to see some of the reels and stuff like that. I got to see it in the what 18 millimeter or whatever it was shot in. I got to see it in like it's an original film, how it was shot. So it was really cool to see it in that, with seeing with all the cuts and everything they had to do in it. So yeah, I mean, there's no disrespecting even saying that two is better than one. It's just, I don't know. I just have a thing for two.
I
Oh,
just
same,
saw the
same.
original on the big screen again. I saw it on the big screen back in the 80s at a midnight show. But Count Gore came up. Um, he hosts films at the AFI
Yeah, yeah,
and the last one they did was the original Texas Chainsaw,
Nice.
and I went to
yeah,
that.
yeah, 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 yeah. A
The
friend of mine,
next
I
one
don't know
they're
how he got
doing.
it, but he got like one of the original, like reprinted, like I said, like old school real films of it, and we gotta watch it. And he put like a little thing together. Everybody chipped in like $5 to get it. We'd like rented out this theater, and we got to see it. It was so cool to see it like in its an original, the way that it was filmed and stuff like that. It was just so
Right.
cool. I mean, I've always liked that. I mean, like, I saw me and Miss Devil went and seen the Quentin Tarantino, the movie that he did, and we got to see it in the original like setting and filming how he did it, where it was like a 3-hour movie and you had an intermission. I thought that I just like watching those,
Right.
films like how they were originally meant to be.
Yeah.
The next Count Gore movie is in March. I don't know the exact date. I don't remember. They're going to show the 1978 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh, nice. Because
That's
that
a,
was another one too. Because when we did Toby Hooper, probably my favorite one of all time of his ones that is quirky was his Invaders from Mars. I love his version of Invaders from Mars because it was just so over the top like 80s camp.
did he do Life Force?
Yep,
Yes,
yep.
my
He did Life Force
fucking
too.
space invading vampire.
Space
Yes.
vampire movie. Yep, yep. We put that
Yes, he
one.
did. Yes, he did, D.
And of course, Poltergeist.
Yep.
Well, yeah, yeah. We did Poltergeist as our franchise for the first time. We did I picked the Poltergeist franchise, and Vampire picked the Witchcraft,
Oh, which one?
Witchboard franchise, and we played
Okay.
those against each other. Yeah, I was a huge Poltergeist fan too. Like I said, Toby Hooper's movies, like just we talked about it on the thing. Unfortunately, his last couple of movies were not too great, but
Right.
then again, when you have a body of work like that, even if you have a couple misses, it still doesn't tarnish his name at all.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, like the funny thing about that showdown with Witchboard and Poltergeist is like honestly the whole like build up, the whole conversation was like basically just two heavyweights just squaring it off blow for blow until you got to the third movie, because the Witchboard movie, and I will ride or die for that franchise, but I mean I'll pull no punches either. That third movie is such a train wreck. It's so awful in every way. Where don't get me wrong, there Poltergeist 3 was never going to win any awards either, but like it still fits, it still works in the dynamic, versus Witchboard is just this just tragic money grab where Kevin, the original director, isn't even involved in it. The planchette is badass, and so is the movie poster, which is hanging right over my shoulder on the wall, because I've got OG movie posters for all three of the movies. Big ass fucking posters hanging above my TV. And it's a great poster and it's a gnarly looking planchette, but it is a just fucking shit-tastic movie.
Yeah.
I've not seen it. I've only seen the first.
Yeah.
The first is the one. I really do like the second one. I think the second one has a lot of charm to it, and I really like the way they did it. The third one, it's just bad. It's just not good. I mean, had Kevin Tenney been involved in it, I really think that it would have had a shot. And then who knows? Doesn't mean that Poltergeist still wouldn't have won, but I just don't think it would have ended up as like kind of the little like, well, look, the fact of the matter is I can't keep fighting this fight when maybe the first where the first Poltergeist movie maybe edges out the first Witchboard movie, but the second Witchboard movie I think edges out the second Poltergeist movie. But then while the third Poltergeist movie isn't like a masterpiece, it's so much better than the third Witchboard movie.
Yeah, the only bonus points that we gave Witchboard 3 with the director not coming back. The reason why he didn't come back was they were talking about like so much skin. Tawny shows a lot of skin in the first movie. The third movie shows a lot of skin. When he was directing the second movie, Mickey Dolentz's daughter is the main actress in it from the Monkees, and she didn't want to show any nudity and was saying don't want to do it, and the director didn't force her.
Yeah,
And they got pissed, and then that's why when they decided to make the third movie, they were like, yeah, we don't even want to go with this guy. So like we gave him credits for like sticking to his actress and not being like, oh no, you're doing this or you're not going to be in the movie.
right.
So yeah, we gave him bonus points for
They
that.
got a body double for the scenes that they needed.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, although all of us wouldn't have mind seeing, a little monkey daughter's girl, little titty of the monkeys, but
Yeah.
but like I said, hey man, it's all good, you know what I mean? Like I respect actors and actresses that are willing, to say, hey man, this is it, and like especially from a director, you know what I mean? Like he could have lost it. I mean, the cool thing about it though was that he kept on. He was an OG fucking badass fucking director. He kept on playing them on and on and on and on and on till it was too late for them to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he couldn't get fired from it. Where he was like, "Oh yeah, we're getting to it. Yeah. She's gonna, yeah." And then when it was like, "Oh no, she didn't do it," and like they had two options to either go with it or scrap the movie all by itself.
Right.
And they were like, "Yo, fuck it, we're just." So I gave him kudos for that, but other than that, yeah, Witchboard 3 is a piece of shit.
Yeah, it's just not good, man. It's just not good at all. But
What
hey,
about,
that's just kind of the way it goes. But
yeah, what about 2025? Are there any new movies coming out that you've heard through the grapevine that you're looking forward to seeing?
I'm looking forward to Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Just because he's money.
yes,
Yeah.
I've mentioned that to some people who are diehard Universal fans, who have been like, "Oh, I just can't see that movie without Boris Karloff." And Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein with Karloff are two of my favorite films ever. But people don't remember that original film was not very true to the book.
no.
Yeah.
And my defense for Del Toro's Frankenstein is that it's Del Toro.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, like,
and it's,
even though
it's a passion project for him. It's something he's do. So I'm looking very forward to that.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about Del Toro doing that movie too. Is like you can go into what we've talked about because we just did a Universal Monsters versus picked Dracula, and I picked The Bride of Frankenstein because to me I'm a huge Frankenstein fan, but I've always been more of a fan of Bride of Frankenstein. I always felt that it was being a more superior movie. As far as stuff in general. But yeah, like you look at Del Toro with Del Toro doing The Shape of Water, which in all intents and purposes is basically a Creature of the Black Lagoon kind of story. So and you're taking a movie where he's not really taking that story of the Creature of the Black Lagoon, but it's very similar and made that movie in Shape of Water is an amazing movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're putting Del Toro into doing Frankenstein, which we were just talking to, which is kind of cool because not too many we were just talking about how there's not really any Frankenstein movies. Out of all the Universal monsters, there's not too many. You've got Mary Shelley's one with Robert De Niro, and then you have you have Frankenstein and the Monster Squad, and that's pretty much the end of Frankenstein as far as other than the Universal movies.
Right.
Where everybody else has done that. So to me, and like I said, I mean, name a movie that Del Toro's done that wasn't money or great. I mean, even his first or old school original Spanish films like The Devil's Backbone is an amazing freaking movie. I'm a huge Del Toro fan. I don't even care, man. If Del Toro could remake Rocky Horror Picture Show. As godly as I love Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I would be like, fuck yeah, Del Toro's gonna kick ass. Yeah.
That's 50 this year. Now, a film that I saw announced last night that's just in development that has me very excited is Christopher Nolan wants to develop the Odyssey.
Oh, nice.
And I have wanted an Odyssey film. I remember when The Lord of the Rings was rolling out, and I said, gosh, we need something of this scope with the Odyssey. Because I've loved that story since I was a kid. And even though, well, I don't know if it's just going to be a single film or not, but even if it is a single film, Chris Nolan isn't afraid to throw 3 hours at you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm super excited too. Like they just announced recently too that Troma, the remake of Toxic Avenger, finally found a distributor. So now it's going to be possibly released. And like, to me, I don't even care how bad that movie is. I just want to see it because freaking Peter Dinklage is in the movie. I'm like, dude, that's freaking awesome. And then you have Elijah Woods in it too. So it's like, I'm like, oh my god, like this movie could be horrible. But...
And Kevin Bacon.
Yep.
Well, it's going to have a degree of badness to it. That's what makes it what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's Toxic Avenger movie. I mean, you're remake. It's not like you're remaking, Gone with the Wind or some, epic freaking, master story. It's about a guy who falls into a toxic vapes, gets big and crushes heads.
Right. When Devil told me that yesterday, that automatically made it my number one most anticipated movie for 2025 because I love the Toxic Avenger. I love them all, and they're just so fun. I got, my poster that Lloyd signed. I've got my T-shirt. Like I love my Toxic Avenger. But I will say, like, the more like bigger name movies for like 2025, like I'm looking forward to the new Megan movie more out of curiosity because I really liked the first Megan. I thought that movie was really cool. So, and it really wasn't left to have a sequel. So I'm curious with what direction they're going to go with this.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually really starting to get into, because I loved the original and the sequel was okay. I enjoyed it just fine, but I'm very curious about 28 years later.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be cool. The movie that's overall had me the most hype for 2025 was the Black Phone 2, because I thought that movie was just fucking sick. And I'm really looking forward to the new Saw movie because I love a new Saw movie. And the movie that's been poking me the most, because I like the whole franchise, and it was in the fight, if not a possible front runner for our showdown of franchises, is I'm really looking forward to the new Final Destination.
Yes.
Like I'm committed. And for me personally, because I'm a huge demonology fan, I'm really looking forward to the conclusion of The Conjuring.
It is a cool fucking time to be a horror fan.
It is, man. It absolutely is.
It is really fun. And in non-horror, of course, I'm a Marvel nut, so I'm looking forward to Captain America.
Oh yeah, who doesn't want to see the Red Hulk?
And I'm very interested in the new Superman film, and I've never been a huge Superman fan. But I did binge Superman and Lois, which I thought was great. I thought it was one of the best live action depictions of Superman ever. So I'm really anxious for this just because it has the bright color palette. It looks like a comic book. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
And I will throw in, even though it's not a movie, it's a TV series. But man, finally, bring on my new season of Wednesday.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited. They just announced, I guess, that they're bringing back Resident Evil or Resident Alien in for the season 3. And I'm a huge that series
That
is
was so
that
much fun.
that's
It
like the
was so much fun.
best Alien TV series I've ever seen in my entire. It reminds me of old school like Mork and Mindy, where it's so overtly stupid, where he's just trying to be human and do things that like humans do, but then it's like not even close to being what a human would do. So it's like
Right.
so absurd and so stupid. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, there's a lot of good movies that are going to be coming out this year and stuff like that. And I'm looking forward to like some of these like you said, these independent films, especially with with the success of like Terrifier, where these like they can show you that like, hey, this movie that took $2 million to make can make more money than your Oscar winning movies. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, I'm looking forward to like how that's gonna come into play now, where like horror fans are kind of getting into where like Terrifier, like we were talking about that at cons. We've gone and met the Terrifier guys a bunch of times, and every time with the success of 1 and 2, even 2 being such a huge blockbuster, right after 2 we got to meet all the actors. We got to meet David, the Terrifier guys. We got to meet all these actors and actors from it, and had no problem. But once Terrifier 3 came out, and
Bro.
then we went to a con afterwards, our
Mhm.
friends was in line for David, who plays Art the Clown, the whole entire day. It was insane. Like even the con was not
and
expecting
and,
like
and didn't
it to
meet him.
be, yeah, and didn't even meet him. Spent the whole entire day and 8 hours in a con and didn't even get to meet him. Other than they did a photo op, so they got to do that, but they didn't get to like in line, which is insane because like every year before that, we've literally walked up maybe 5-10 minutes, maybe having to wait, and that was
Right.
it. So I mean, it basically kind of shows like how like Terrifier, because Terrifier 3 is like, to me, is like your Hot Topics or your Spencers of horror films, where everybody and their mother went to go see that movie, which
Right.
is a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, it's a good thing because independent directors can make these movies and get seen, but then again, if us horror guys are like, yeah, you're just kind of walking into this scene of horror films, like we've been horror geeks and freaks our whole entire life, like,
Right.
so
Right.
it's like, it's cool that you're in the party, but now you're coming to theaters and seeing these movies. When the Frankenstein Del Toro movie comes out in theaters, sit down and shut the fuck up. Don't yippee yappy. Don't go on
Yep.
your phone. Don't go, oh my God, I don't understand this. If you don't like it, then don't go see
And
it.
it's just crazy when the bubble pops. Like I'm looking like right above where we're recording at is where I have like all of my Terrifier stuff hanging, and I'm like looking at it right now, and I'm like, I've met I've met David and Damien multiple times. I've got 3 things signed on that wall for David, 3 things signed on there for Damien, like the little pale girl twice, like damn near everybody in the franchise. And that's not me trying to be like, oh, look at my big autograph collecting dick that you guys have to like bow down to. It's simply nothing more than, man, when the bubble pops, things can become incredibly difficult. And Devil and I were at the con looking at each other at this line that never moved, and it was just, it was kind of shocking. It was really was. I was like the one person at that particular con that we weren't able to meet, that me and Mrs. Vamp really wanted to meet, was Shawnee Smith from Saw. And because I wasn't able to meet her at the last con that I was at, that she was at, and her line did not move at all, which I'll admit caught me a little off guard. I was like, I know she's popular, but I don't really consider her like that. But then when you look at, I guess, the continued success of Saw with the new movies that are coming out, and the fact that she hadn't really done cons in a minute, kind of explained why it didn't really work out in our favor. But it really was crazy where, like, I got to meet, you know, the 3 times that David signed for me, I was in his line for all 3 of those signings, maybe a combined 45 minutes, for all the times. And it's just crazy with those things, which is one of the reasons why it's like, you know what, like put some thought into the value when you get a chance to maybe meet somebody, because you never really know when things can change. Like the one person, like at the next con that Devil and I are planning to do up in New Jersey, that has me like super duper stoked, is V Neil's going to be there, and being such a huge Lost Boys nerd, of course, and Devil's a big fan as well. We've been stalking out the Lost Boys cast for years, and both of us have a respected piece that is just filled with signatures. And we had gotten down to where basically we're both not counting V, but we were down to 2 autographs for our respective things being complete, not counting people that have passed. And one I think is doable, and that's Diane Wiest, the mom. The other is like, well, if she's ever announced, we're committed to the travel, because we might only get one shot. And that's Jamie Gerst, who played Star. Jamie Getz, who played Star. Because the fact of the matter is, she's married to the dude that like owns the Atlanta Braves. Like, she's worth like $5 billion now. Like, she doesn't need to do this stuff. But when it came to V Neil, I was like, no, I want that. Because she's an Oscar-winning makeup artist. She did the Lost Boys makeup. I also have a Beetlejuice poster that has a few autographs on it. So I'm like, you know what? If her price isn't ridiculous, and I don't think it's going to be, I'm like, you know what? I'm committed to getting her on both my Lost Boys poster and my Beetlejuice poster, because that'll just fucking rock.
Yes.
But absolutely, man. But Dee, first and foremost, man, we cannot appreciate you enough for rocking out with us this evening, man. The biggest thing for myself and Devil is that, you had a really good time. You enjoyed yourself. You felt respected. You liked the questions that were asked. And most importantly, you felt that this was beneficial to your continued success, man.
Yes, absolutely. And I always say this at shows. Any evening spent playing music with friends is an evening well spent. And that kind of applies to this as well,
No, absolutely, Dee. No, we appreciate you, man. But before we sign off and let you go, man, please let all the Fangs and Infernos know where you can be found and all of your books and your music.
The best place to find me is screamingmaddee.com, and that's screaming mad, and D is DEE.com. Got music there, got videos there, all my retail links for my music, for my books. You get to all my social media haunts on there. So that's the best place to find me. You'll find my music, my books, Spiral Grave stuff, Iron Man stuff. So definitely come check it out.
Oh, yeah, man. Sounds super duper awesome, man. Would definitely appreciate your time as well, man. Fangs and Infernos, thank you guys so much. All of our beloved ghouls, goblins, and fiends. We really appreciate you guys, as always, showing support, showing love, and rocking out with us. I'm the vampire. He is the devil. But more importantly, he is screaming Mad Dee Calhoun. Horns up. Fangs out.